good morning, everybody. Excuse me. It's the Glamorous Granny, number 7 on TikTok. How everybody doing? I know some people ain't on their way to work, putting the kids on the school bus, but here I am. I changed my living room around. The clock over there. I'm over here. You don't see my grandson stuff. We're gonna finish this book. Everything happens for a reason. Her name is Myra Kirschenbaum. Huge jars of candy. Reason 10. We're finally at the end of this book. At the end. See? The end. I don't like finishing books like this because it's still informative. I really read it this time. When I first got this book, it was like 2010. Yeah, I looked at it, read it as a for pleasure, not for application. Some books you read to apply, and they do go along with the Bible. I'm going to read the scripture of the day before I start reading. These come from Dollar Tree. They said today's prayer. Be on guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. 1 Corinthians 16, chapter 16, verse 13. Kind of moving around there. Hold on. Got to push you back so I can really see. Had to put my lamp over here. Reason 10, to help you become a truly good person. I thought we were already with good people. I chose not to put my glasses on. It's easier to read without because I'll be like reading up under it. Nothing gives you a good life like being a good person. Lots of people will never be able to understand this. It's not that they're bad people, but they're tone deaf to genuine goodness, meaning they don't hear what people put from inside. They hurt others without even realizing it. A million opportunities for doing something genuinely good passes them by, and they never see a single one of them. Sure, they have possessions, they take trips. There are people in their lives, but there's a kind of hollow greatness, an empty spot that they'll never escape because they lack the ability to become truly good people. Some of us, though, are also living in this hollow greatness, deprived of the bright, sweet life that belongs to people who are truly good. But we're not trapped forever. We have untapped resources for goodness we've never known about until something happens in life to wake us up. Wake up. I'll never forget Roger. He was about rich and handsome as he can be. He seemed like a pretty good guy, too, in a careless, somewhat lazily self centered way. He'd never deliberately hurt someone. He'd write checks for causes if you asked him, but he rarely went out of his way to help anyone. Roger was totally devastated because his young wife had decided to get out of their marriage. As I got to know him, my picture of him changed. Roger was as a good, not as good a guy as he thought he was. For all the gifts nature has bestowed on him, Roger didn't do much to pay back for what he had. In a clumsy, inadvertent way, he'd actually hurt a number of people. He dropped old friends, made cutting comments to associates. His wife had left him because of a number of casual cruelties. Nothing shocking, just thoughtless instance of neglect and the occasional outburst of anger. While he'd mistreated others, he'd been mistreated even worse himself. His father had bullied him, nothing like child abuse. But his father had been perfectly willing to hurt him to make a man of him, ignoring the hurt that inflicted. When a boy gets to the sense that he needs to be hurt if he's going to be a good man. You ain't got to hurt a person to make him be a good person, a good man. Hold on, page stuff. Roger came to me looking for some explanation for what had happened to him. Preferably, it would have been a story about why his wife was crazy. Mhm. He would have accepted a story about his having psychological issues of his own. Imagine his surprise when he saw that the reason why he lost the woman he loved was to teach him a lesson about becoming a truly good man. Roger had been an excellent basketball player, and he was used to accepting what the coach told him to do. So he accepted what I told him, like a good team player. He worked his butt off to be a good person, as his imagination could conceive. He kept his eyes. Let me read it up. He kept his eyes open for people in his life who might have problems he could help them with, and he became a big brother. Within a year, he was happier than he'd ever been in his life. It doesn't always take a big personal catastrophe to teach a big lesson. My friend Viv, was walking home one evening when she turned the corner and saw people clustering around a guy who evidently dropped dead of a heart attack. Of course, Viv was upset seeing this, but still she didn't know him from Adam. So why was this a meaningful to her? Here's what she told me. When I saw that guy lying there turning gray, bang, I immediately thought that it could easily have been me. I've got to start becoming a better person if you can die like that at any moment. I can identify with this myself. There are moments when I believe that I'm a good person. I never deliberately hurt anyone. I try to help people whenever I can. But let's be honest, I'm a good person. But I'm also lazy. It could easily be true that there's a lot more I could do to be a lot better person. I also think people care about doing good. And so we notice all the little ways in which we don't live up to our own standards. Oops, pointing at myself too. Can't point the finger at everybody out there, but I can point it at myself. Let's be honest. Um, I also think people care about doing good, so we'll notice all little things in which we don't live to our own standards. Or do I notice all these little moral lapses because I really am not as good a person as I think I am? It's hard to know, isn't it? Even if the easy answer is yes, you're a good person. When you look more closely, who knows? The next section is good, better, best. I know what you're thinking. How does this apply to me? You? How does it apply to you? How does it apply to me? I'm a pretty darn good person already. Let me turn this on. Uh, why would something happen to me to teach me that I need to become a better person? I know, I believe you, but it's not about whether you've earned enough points to rest on your laurels because you've earned good person status. It's about living up to your potential, your highest potential for being an even better person, your best possible self. In fact, someone who isn't good in a soft, half hearted way, but in a strong, committed way. Barbara Bush had been a very good person in the years before her husband became president. But then she went through an experience she described as 6 months of deepest depression, where she felt she wasted her life and lost her desire to live. Instead of getting help, she merely stayed in that depressed state, which eventually lifted. Thank God. She described how this experience made her a better person. Before, when she seen people going through tough times, she'd be judgmental because they hadn't just snapped out of it. But now she learned her lesson. Hold on, the pages are stuck. No one stays suffering like that because of a willful refusal to snap out. Barbara Bush had a revelation about how hard it can be for people to lift themselves out of their difficulties. The reason she'd gone through her own painful experience was to get a compassion transplant, something many of us need from time to time. My research showed that there was one thing common to everyone who realized that the meaning of what happened was that they needed to work harder at being a truly good person. It was seeing that others suffered as a result of the bad things they'd done. And what's more, that they typically been mistreated themselves. So they also knew what it was like to be on the receiving end. That's the diagnostic here. One simple question: have you experienced loss or pain in your life, both because you've been mistreated and because you've mistreated others? Question. Let's think. Breathe in. Ah, okay. The question is, have you experienced loss or pain in your life, both because you've been mistreated and because you have mistreated others? If you answer yes, this diagnostic question, this is the meaning of what happened to you to help you see how important it is for you to become a better person, not just a little better, but actively good person. Next section, being good and doing well. It's hard for some people to accept that this applies to them. For example, when you're growing up in a poor neighborhood, the way I did, you're always wondering if you're going to make it, which deep down means doing something to make that makes you proud of yourself. You know that your little world has a way of trapping you, limiting your hopes and opportunities, sucking you back into the its mud. You see young people older than yourself, good looking, bright, charming, and then one day they are married and living in the neighborhood with kids of their own, working at a go nowhere job. That's a good one. Go nowhere job. You know how hard it is to do really well. So being a good person can fall low on your ladder of priority. Sharon was a friend of mine growing up, one of those kids you knew was going to do something big one day. She had that focus that makes all the difference. Plus, she had real talent. Sharon's parents was garment factory worker. Sharon wanted to be a designer. In her loose leaf notebook, she was always sketching skinny, long neck, blank faced women wearing all kinds of beautiful clothes, from ball gowns to tailored suits. And when you see an 11-year-old girl drawing women wearing tailored suits, you know she's serious. And Sharon did make it. She got hot in early 80s, become a much talked about young designer with parents in the garment industry. She knew the business. So she made a lot of money too. In fact, she had it all, including well-connected Wall Street husband. The thing is, if you know her back when all this was starting, you'd have liked her a lot. Contrary to the image of people who clawed their way out of the jungle, Sharon's success was accompanied by the fact that she was generally a good person. If if Hold on, guys. All right. Mm. If a friend asked her to help, Sharon was there for her. And Sharon had never deliberately hurt anyone or her way up. But as she got busy, she got less interested in being a good person. She rarely go out of her way to help people anymore. Being good meant nothing more than not being bad, or even once in a while writing a check she could easily afford. And still she thought of herself as a good person. Then something happened to Sharon that devastated her. She got a call from her lawyer. Her husband had told his lawyer to tell her lawyer to tell her that he decided to get out of the marriage and he wanted custody of their two boys. Let me see. Okay, we're going to read all the way. We're going to finish this section. He didn't think her lifestyle was good for the boys because all she did was work. He claimed and hang out with the weirdos. The next 3 years were worse than if her husband had died. On top of her loss was a sense of rejection, a terrible fear of losing her children, and an inability to figure out why this was happening to her. Hmm, that ate away at Sharon like worms on a corpse. All she could get from her husband was that he didn't want to be married to her anymore, along with some vague reference to terrible things she done. It was about 5 years after this period that she called me. I'd been out of touch with Sharon, but I heard about some of her troubles through the grapevine. I was surprised that the woman I was looking at as we sat down for dinner radiate emotional energy. After Sharon filled me in on everything that had happened, she continued, but I'm okay now, more than okay. There was a period when I didn't know if I'd get out of my sanity. And even after things got clear and I ended up with joint custody, I was still devastated. But I was such a deep rejection that I was so scared. Of course, I felt terrible about myself. I thought, what the hell's wrong with me? And I this bad? Am I this bad person? But I always thought of myself as a really good person, Sharon said. Then this thing happened at work. There was this guy who'd been responsible for our production in the Far East, but he just didn't know the Far East. He couldn't deal with the people. They were eating us alive. He was an older guy. I had one of my vice presidents fire him. She came back and told me about how he took it really hard and how hard it had been for her. I was still fed up and I said, well, if you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. I can play nursemaid for my people. My vice president, she started the business with me, just looked at me. Who the hell are you? I don't even know you. And she walked out. It was her attitude of not thinking she could even being begin to deal with me like I was a lost cause. That's what really said something to me. I didn't know who to talk to. I went to see my aunt, who'd been like a second mother to me, and I asked her, Aunt Rose, am I a good person? She sighed. Oh, that's great, I thought. What a recommendation. So I asked her to let me have it. And she said, look, Sharon, you've been a very lucky person. You've had you have a lot of gifts you used to try hard to be good. But now I think you hurt a lot of people without paying much attention to what you're doing. Sharon suddenly saw a lot of things she never seen before. She was starting to turn into one of those cold-hearted women who complain that no one sees how vulnerably they feel inside. She saw that maybe the best part of her had gotten lost. She said to herself, I don't want to be someone who at best was merely not evil. I want to be positively a positively good person, really do good things. The woman I saw sitting across from me was a woman who had transformed herself. Sharon realized that her husband had been the canary in the coal mine. Other people had also been starting to get fed up with her. Her new focus on being a good person transformed her relationship with everyone. Wow. Hmm. Wow. Let me get my pen. That's deep. So, under the good, better, best question, have you experienced loss or pain in your life, both because you've been mistreated and because you've mistreated someone? This book is called Everything Happens for a Reason. We have one, two, three. I have three more sections to read, and then I'll be the end. Remember, everything happens for a reason. Oops. And the scripture today is be on guard. Today's prayer. Be on guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. 1 Corinthians 16:13. And don't forget to get your cup of coffee for today. That's what Tweety said. And this is Dailies, the reader. Have a blessed day.